Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 30th March 2016. The first article is related to the defense procurement policy. Yesterday also we saw few articles related to this. In this case, the new category of the group for procurement is IDDM, indigenously designed, developed and manufactured goods. So, for this, if the content is 40% local, then that qualifies for IDDM category. And if that is not locally designed, but it is developed and manufactured locally, the local content has to be 60%. The first preference will be given for procurement for these products. Now, the second thing is, previously, the excessive weightage or total weightage is towards the financial terms, that is, who has quoted the lowest price for a particular good. Now, a 10% weightage is given to the superior technology with regard to the procurement. And offset clause, previously, the upper limit for the offset clause where the 30% of the manufacturing shall be within India is 300 crores. Now, it has raised it to 2000 crores. But one thing which is missing is the Raksha Ratna status which was given by UPA government previously. Under this, certain private firms will be identified and these firms will be given a special status to take up various defense projects. Now, under this category, the Dhirendra Singh committee also has recommended for certain special category or strategic partners in private sector who can help to take forward the Make in India initiative. So in this context, the Schedule 7 of the defense procurement policy is dropped and the government said that it will notify it later. And finally, military industrial complex, if you take this into consideration, India is the largest importer of the weapons after Saudi Arabia. So India's dependence on imports is not good for such a large country. Military industrial complex for its development, the necessary human resources and that is the engineering institutes, the defense budget, all are favorable now. So it is the right time India create this military industrial complex as quick as possible to bring in self-reliance with regard to the defense production concerned. Coming to the 100% FDI in e-commerce. Here, marketplace format we need to understand. An inventory based format we need to understand. A marketplace format, it means the e-commerce giant or e-commerce will act as an intermediary between the buyer and seller. It facilitates the ease of access for the buyer to buy actually a good from a different seller. So it means a mobile application and there is a buyer and there is a seller. So now the seller will sell the goods using the intermediate application, that is Amazon or Flipkart or something. On the other hand, an inventory based model, it means this person, that is e-commerce person himself, he will manage an inventory, that is he will make the role of the seller and also the intermediary to deliver the goods towards the buyer. So in this inventory model, FDI is not allowed, but in this case of the marketplace model, yes, FDI is allowed. So this particular e-commerce person, in the marketplace model also he can offer for the warehousing, logistic supports, call center, payment collections and other services too. So this clarity has been provided by the government with regard to e-commerce. Now, coming to the terrorism in Lahore, understand carefully how the Pakistan is dealing with the terrorism. So the military is been immediately roped in after the serial of bombs blasted in Lahore Park. So carefully if you see the role of the military with regard to the anti-terror operations, it can only provide for a short-term gain, but in the long term, it is the responsibility of the police and internal security. So if we have to fight these militancy, first thing is the people shall have a sense of justice. And also the rights of the people have to be well guarded. And a holistic view is necessary on the extremism rather than seeing from an incidental or particular incident over here. So the state has to make necessary steps towards raising the values of the citizenship and providing for a security framework to the citizens. A national security policy have to be enacted in this context clearly defining what roles have to be played by different agencies in the case of terrorism. Military cannot be a solution for the terrorist attacks in a particular country. And coming to the India solar policy, you know the issue already, we discussed it. I'll give you a brief about this. India recently has provided for domestic content requirement. It means that a solar manufacturer has to be, sorry, a solar energy producer, he has to procure the solar cells from the local manufacturers. Understand? The model is like this. There is a solar energy producer and he will procure that from a local manufacturer, and then the government will buy the energy which is produced by this solar energy producer. The government will buy only when the solar panels and modules are being brought from the local markets. So this is what is called domestic content requirement. It is challenged by US in WTO. So how India tried to counter it? One is general exception clause and the second is government procurement clause. What government argued is, so whatever the solar panels, these are for ultimately to the governmental procurement, where the energy produced from the solar panels is ultimately brought by the government. But however, government is selling it to the consumers, that is another issue. And the second is, the general exception clause, it means, under the international treaty obligation, if there is an exception has to be made to the fair trade norms, yes, it is allowed. So India says that under its climate change obligations, it has to produce 1 lakh, a megawatt of electricity by 2022. So because of these obligations, it has to encourage the local industry to reach the green targets. But however, WTO said these are not binding agreements or binding targets. So in this context, this general exception clause and also the government procurement clause do not apply in the case of India. So the India's argument was quashed and the judgment was given in favor of the United States of America. And finally, today, India has challenged United States of America in the WTO again on the grounds that many of the states, that is more than 9 states in the United States of America, have the same domestic content requirement to encourage the domestic manufacturers. The next is, with regard to women in India, now judiciary is highly biased against the male. So what is required is this. An increased presence of women in judiciary will provide for greater diversity and also broad-based argument and sensitivity towards the issues of the women. So this is proven by Navi Pillai occupying the United Human Rights Commission and the sensitivity against various atrocities committed against women with regard to Rwanda to Sri Lanka. So in a democracy, judiciary shall also be a mirror of the whole society. So providing a greater representation to women increases this particular scenario. So the gender diversity will ultimately enrich the jurisprudence in India, and India has to take the steps in that direction. And coming to the bilateral issues between India and European Union, you know that European Union as a bloc is the largest trade partner to India. Highest number of the goods and services are being exported from there. So in these circumstances, what we can say is this. There are various recent irritants have derailed the talks between India and European Union. So, what are these issues? Now, Italian Marines issue. And the second is, the European Union has imposed certain sanctions on Indian generic drugs on procedural grounds. So, in this context, what I can say is this. In the upcoming Brussels, the leaders are expected to make certain statements on European Union and India Agenda for Action 2020, the Declaration of Clean Energy and Climate, migration and mobility, terrorism. These are the issues which are about to come for discussion, and even Prime Minister Modi is participating in this. And with the recent attacks in Brussels, this particular meeting makes a big difference. The Rakhine emergency is lifted. So let's try to understand what is this Rakhine emergency. So Rohingyas, Muslims from Bangladesh migrated to Myanmar for years back, centuries back. They live in this Rakhine state. There are conflicts between the Buddhists and the Rohingya Muslims. And the state do not recognize these Rohingyas as the Myanmar citizens. So in this context, the atrocities on Rohingyas are increasing, and it has led to a huge humanitarian crisis where Rohingyas were moving across the seas. So in this context, the emergency which was imposed was lifted by the President Thein Sein, and before the new government has come into existence, or before the new government takes the oath ceremony. And coming to the President's rule in Uttarakhand, the High Court of Uttarakhand has declared or gave a chance to Harish Rawat to prove its majority on the floor of the House. It also allowed the MLAs suspended or disqualified under, sorry, it's not suspended, it's disqualified under anti-defection law also to participate in this particular floor test. Now coming to this new lending rate regime from April 1st. So the lending rates of India has to be tuned to the market rates, and monetary policy announcements have to lead to real impact on the ground. For this, from April 1st onwards, the marginal cost fund based lending rates, that is MCLR, are coming into picture. The marginal cost based lending rates, what does this mean? So the lending rates will be reviewed monthly based on the average cost of the deposit rates. So this is what is called marginal cost of the funds based lending rate, which are directly linked to the deposit rates. And coming to Google, the Loon project and white spaces. So understand that the white spaces is the project of the Microsoft, in which unused spectrum in the case of television programs will be used to transmit the internet to the last mile connectivity. The Loon, the Google is using the balloons to be placed in the stratosphere to spread the internet. So with regard to this, the white spaces and Loon, this can be a question, the new initiatives which are being taken to spread the internet. And coming to the MGNREGA, so there is an important statement made by Aruna Roy. The MGNREGA is an attempt to institutionalize the responsibility because it's a rights-based approach program. But however, the delay in payments by the central government is weakening the program, especially during this drought season. The program would have had the huge relevance for the incomes of the people, but however, delay in payments is leading to a loss of enthusiasm in the program. And next is a long road. So the Prime Minister Modi, though, appreciated the recent initiatives taken, and India has been shown as a bright spot of the economy in the world, still there are many things to be achieved for India. So the major achievements have to happen on the structural front, especially the land acquisition bill, the GST bill, and corruption. All these have to be fought to make India the bright spot of the global economy. And India has achieved a remarkable growth, though there are certain disputes onto it. But if we observe carefully, India is just 1/4 of the United States economy. So in these circumstances, what we can say is, based on its small size, the growth can be relatively high. So if you calibrate to the size of the economy, we cannot say the growth of India is much remarkable. So these are the articles for today. Now let's see the yesterday's question, which is related to the president's rule in the Uttarakhand. So the question talks about, do you think imposition of president's rule in a state needs more guidelines on the role of office of speaker and use of anti-defection law? So you can write the context over here, saying that anti-defection law schedule 10 of the constitution, what the statements it makes about. You can explain the anti-defection law in 1 or 2 lines. And then the role of the speaker and disqualification of the members. And the third thing is, so whenever a government's majority is in question, The defected RLs, MLAs who are being dissatisfied are voting against the government of the day. They are disqualified before the floor test so that government can win the majority or this confidence motion on the floor. So the anti-defection law and the complaints, you can talk 2 or 3 points onto that. So then you can talk about the central governmental role and misuse of the Article 356 SR Bommai case, and you can close the answer. Remember that we need to write 5 to 6 concrete points in the answer. Unnecessary writing of 10 to 12 points will not make any use. So a clearly specified, simplistic presentation of 6 to 7 points on the upper side will make a big difference to our answer. Thank you very much.